Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30th episode of The Lab. As always, you have the three of us sitting here, Brandon Wierig, Alex Trotter, and I'm Lou Follenkamp. We hope you guys enjoyed our last episode talking about coaching, not only the athletes, but also maybe your interns, or maybe your PT students. Today, what we're going to kind of talk about, we're going to kind of bring up what we think makes good coaches. Now, this might not necessarily just be a coach in general. We're going to talk specifics here in regards to a speed coach, a strength coach, and a physical therapist. Just for a little reference, if you guys want, you guys can go over to the Garage Gym PT podcast. And Dave and I actually talked about why we wanted to start that and, what we think makes a good physical therapist, especially for athletes. But I'll dive into that a little bit here too today. So to start it off, we're going to go to Brandon.
Yeah.
I think we have so many episodes where I get that yeah out of you. But Brandon, what to you makes a good speed coach?
Speed coach in general is like you have so many different tools that you can use, but it's not like overdoing tools and are you using them tools correctly? Like yesterday on my Instagram, I posted about how wickets are a great tool for top end speed with help get vertical impulse and things like that and help with oscillation and things. But they're not great for starts.
Yeah.
You don't want to get that cycle going too fast. You don't want to get too much vertical impulse too soon. You want to get a nice horizontal push where there's so many coaches out there that will think that if I'm stepping over this hurdle in the gate that I'm getting good knee lift, good knee drive. It's easy to kind of make that negative step easier, but you're getting away the whole point of you're trying to get the ground going. So just kind of using the tools in the correct setting. And then being able to cue, that's just like any coaching. You have certain cues. Everybody kind of hits different cues. Like the end game might be the same, but just having multiple cues that work for different people. And then I think the biggest thing is just kind of being able to demonstrate it. Like you can sit there and talk about something for the whole time, but can you actually physically show the person or the person you're trying to teach?
Yeah.
What you're trying to get accomplished.
Visual learners.
Yeah. So being able to explain it, being able to actually do it, and then using the correct tool at the correct time.
Makes sense.
Now, as far as that goes with your tools that you were speaking of, because I'm just curious now, from the time that you started to now, what is one tool of the training that you would have added in sooner? And then what's one tool that you would have been I probably could have avoided that or never used that one?
Speed ladders.
Never even got it. My internship, man, we didn't use those. We bashed those in day one. Probably like an overspeed treadmill. Something I could have had a lot sooner. It would have been nice. Just especially being in Ohio, you can't go outside all the time, but it also forces you to kind of be in that good top end speed position. If you lean too far forward, you're not going to be able to handle it. If your hip get out of place, you're not going to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Been there.
And then things that I would probably shy away from.
Speed ladders.
I mean, obviously speed ladders.
Yeah.
I really don't think I've ever really shied away from. I mean, I'll get away from drills that I kind of like thinking why did I get away from them?
Uh-huh.
And one is to be an overspeed drill, where you're physically getting pulled by a band. People usually do that way too high. Like if you go anything over, it's kind of like an overspeed or over max, like anything over 3% or 5%, you're not going to be able to handle it. And you're just totally throwing your form out the window. And then some people just tie 6 bands together and just straight up drag these little kids that can't even really run normal as it is with overspeed. And it's just, it's kind of a hard thing to do. If you get a 1080 sprint machine that can actually calculate, that'd be perfect. Your perfect, your top end speed, and then they can actually calculate 3% of what that is to where it pulls you in the perfect position. That'd be ideal. But a lot of people don't realize when you overspeed that your nervous system isn't ready for that. And it's very common for you to throw up over something like that, which is another thing. But yeah, something I would definitely, I don't use enough, I guess. But when it comes to things that I would shy away from, I don't think I get too crazy when it comes to things like that. But
it's an expensive device.
Oh, it's 15 grand, 20 grand?
Oh no, it was 20 grand.
20, yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't anticipate that.
Simply faster, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was always just curious about that. What your thoughts on it were. It's like from what I've noticed, you've never, I mean, you have like a wheelhouse of exercise that you go through, and they're essentially like KPIs or, like testing the kids to make sure that you're progressing them as well.
Yeah. The thing with speed is like you can produce, like you take powerlifters, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, you take away like their body fat percentage, like there's things like that, but a lot of them just don't have the rhythm or the force, produce the force in the way they want to go and the technique of it.
Yeah.
So like people say force is king, but like if you can't rhythmatically put that in a sequel, you're not going to be going anywhere. Like you can
expressing it.
Yeah, you can see some dude win the 100-meter dash. It technically like shit, but if you break it down frame by frame, everything's just
all over the place.
It's all over the place, but it's like smoothly all over the place. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
control chaos.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
which.
Yeah, you did that with me last summer when I did that one sprint or whatever. Because like my force production was just in the wrong area.
Yeah.
So you were like trying to make corrections, and it was just not clicking.
Need a certain amount of mobility to get that.
Yeah. Well, I was just having like belly to quad was just smacking, so like I couldn't like raise my knees to where like I needed them to be. Yeah.
For what speed you hit though, it's kind of scary.
I got a short burst in there after about 50 feet. You got a good chance of getting away.
And I'm safe.
Yeah, I don't got it anymore.
Just gotta get that sneak attack.
Yeah. Well, so as far as like your PT stuff, what do you think of?
In regards to what? Like just in general, what I look for in like a PT?
Yeah. There was a new individual over there today when I went.
Oh, yeah, Dalton. Dalton was there. Dalton, if you're listening to this, you did good. You did fantastic this week.
I'm glad you say that now. Mike's on.
No, I think the number one thing that I would look for, and like especially when I'm trying to send athletes to a PT, like when they go to school per se, if I have the time and I can call them, if this PT can't even hold a conversation, that's usually a red flag for me because I want them to be able to communicate effectively. I think if the PT can't communicate effectively, there's just no patient buy-in, and I mean you're trusting someone with your recovery process. And I mean, if I was just basically sitting here completely quiet as I'll get out, and my patient's trying to tell me things, and I can't do that, it's not necessarily a great way to kind of start that therapeutic alliance, right? The other thing, though, I think is when they put you through the same stuff every time. I've seen, or like they use the same number of reps and sets for every exercise and every movement. It's the same number of reps and sets, and it never changes from session to session.
Yeah.
Even as they progress, even if they are progressing. I mean,
sounds like a certain college that we deal with.
Did you see that workout this week?
We won't say anything.
I have not.
Oh, I gotta show you that when you get to the gym.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be lovely.
But it just kind of drives me nuts when there's no progressions, really. There's no like rhyme or reason to the exercise prescription. So like for example, using this example again, I had done PT when I was in rugby, and the first PT I went to just like had me doing clamshells. The total knee person was doing clamshells, and I was like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And then I saw the other person was doing like the same things I was doing all the time. I'm like, this is a bunch of bull. This ain't it. So I left and then went to another PT, and he had me doing a bunch of like I actually trained like an athlete as opposed to training like basically like the total knee patient. So I feel like if you're going to be sending an athlete should work with an athlete. And if that person has no idea how to apply like strength and conditioning principles, but like has no idea like the rhyme and reason between like reps and sets, then they have no business treating an athlete. Because then at the end of the day, when you do finish your quote unquote, your rehab is completed and your discharge, you might look good on paper, but in reality, you might not have touched on half the aspects of your overall like health or like physical fitness or like, sport preparation that you really needed to. Then you go back out there, you go back on the field, and then you're right back into PT again because you never addressed the thing that actually needed to be addressed, or you weren't pushed hard enough in order to do that.
Yeah. Or you get a new injury.
Yeah. And like the other thing that used to drive me nuts is like physical therapists won't load patients. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, you are recovering from an injury, or yes, we're working on addressing these, and like either movement patterns or load intolerant, and they won't put weights in patients' hands because they think it's just too much for them. Well, they were squatting like 250 pounds with shitty form. You've got their form better now. Why wouldn't you try to improve and load them right now? So it's like, how are you going to know if you don't do it?
Yeah.
So like that's another thing. Because
and it's not like you have to jump straight to 250 either.
Exactly.
You can gradually work it up.
Build the load in a progression, right?
Yeah.
Progressive overload. So like those are just some, can you communicate and, do you actually have the mindset of you were the athlete and now you want to make athletes better or, better than what they were beforehand? Because clearly how they were and they got injured brought them to you. Those are my two really big hangups. I need that in a PT, especially like when I'm looking for people to either work with, or even like I would say, even if I was hiring someone, those would be two like make or break. If you can't do that, sorry, you could have been like the highest PT graduating out of Ohio State, and I wouldn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't do strength conditioning stuff, no, pass. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, in the field that you're in too.
Yeah.
Because there's so many athletes cycling in and out, and a lot of it's just for like rehab work, but you have to like understand like the level that athlete's at, and because the worst is like if you go to a PT and they are only used to dealing with like I guess quote unquote like normal people or like normal like mindsets and stuff like that, where it's like I don't want to just like get through my day. I guess like I want to do like something that's like.
You want to be active.
Yeah, extraordinary, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Beyond the point of okay, cool, I got out of bed, I could walk to my bathroom without any pain.
Yeah. Bend down and tie my shoes. Stupid.
Like some of the questionnaires I'm sure you've seen, where it's like, you walked 2 blocks, you walked a mile. It's like, this is the threshold of activity we're going to put this all to. Okay, yeah. I think this is a bunch of bull too.
Yeah.
I could get on my soapbox on those stupid questionnaires, but I won't.
Yeah, they're just like the human body used to hunt saber-toothed tigers, and now like it's
stupid shit like that. And insurance companies will sit there and they'll rake in the revenue and then they'll limit patients based off those stupid questionnaires. It's like this doesn't even reflect half the crap you actually need to work on. But
I think I saw a thing on Instagram today. They're talking about like this how declined just America is with the It was the video where the old, they wasn't like trying to bash on the lady, but like the lady lost her stroller and there's a baby in the stroller and it's heading to the highway.
I saw that
and
one, yes.
And the girl just keeps falling and can't physically get up to run down the stroller.
Yeah.
Like
to her credit though, she ate crap.
Yeah.
So like she took a hit.
And she got up and then she fell again. She got up. Like it's not every day that you need your body to be able to do things like that. But there are scenarios like that, for instance, like where your baby's like, luckily the dude was there to save it.
Yeah.
But you should be able to stand up and be able to run 30 meters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, who knows? It could, I don't know a lot about childbirthing, so bear with me. But I mean, it could have been like, it could have been like her first day that she was like out and like able to walk or like go and do stuff. So like she's probably still very sore or like,
we'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
But I mean, it wasn't looking like she was
pretty overweight.
Yeah.
Your baseline fitness, I think, has like the degree of what people accept as a baseline for like overall health and fitness, I think is so drastically low anymore.
Well, they were talking about like how the dad bod. That's the whole thing that brought it up was the dad bod thing, like how the dad bod's in. It's like, well, when it comes to fight or flight, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guess I'll just die.
Yeah. I guess the benefit of dad bod, in theory, could take a hit.
You might not be able to deliver any.
Yeah, the ripple effect, like rubber,
force distribution, built-in airbags.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? I'm curious. So, what do you look for in a strength coach?
Me personally, I tend to lean more towards the been there, done that kind of coaches. I think like with weights, especially like the heavier the weight that has been lifted or whatever, you tend to like respect that person because you're just like, yeah, that's something that I haven't done yet, or that's very impressive because you tried to get that and it just doesn't work out. So I tend to look for that, but then there's like a mindset to it all as well. And there's like just like different aspects of like tapping into that. Like you don't have to, necessarily be like one of those coaches that are yelling the whole time and like all up in the kid's face and stuff like that. Like there's different personalities that you have to mix with.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it's like, I mean, I'm sure Brandon has seen it too. It's 50% of our coaching is more like psychological.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need to like get to know the athletes in order to figure out what makes them like tick, what buttons can I push to where their performance increases, and then what buttons not to push because their performance will decrease. So that's a big part of it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, yeah, and just knowing, just like Brandon said as well, as far as like the cues, like a cue that works on like kid A isn't going to necessarily work for kid B. So like you have to be able to break all that down, and I guess like your vocabulary too. Like there's a college athlete is 9 times out of 10 going to know more words than a junior high kid, and then
don't flex your ankles.
Yeah. What the hell does that mean? Pick your toes up. But yeah, just little stuff like that. And then I don't know. Something that here lately has been like absolutely just grinding my gears is you'll see even on like Instagram, and then like it's kind of becoming like a little bit of a trend now, like on our gym. It's all the kids want coach and they want cues and stuff like that, but then they have headphones in during the whole lift. Like how are you supposed to hear me and make those corrections so then you can feel it and get it going? So
yeah,
that's the only thing. Like I don't know. I've never needed like a music like stimulant to get me like in the zone. I think that's like a lot of people are going to take offense to this. I think that's just weak minded. I think like you should like treat it as like a job or like a task. Like you can go without your phone, or you can go without your music for an hour and like put that time in.
I agree with you, especially in like
Plus, we got music going the whole time too. I can barely hear my own thoughts.
I say when you're out on the field, when you're in the middle of a competition, you're not going to have headphones in your ears,
right?
Right? You're going to have the
yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
But I think that's like good for training as well, because I think that came from like a sports background. Is like when you're in that zone and you're locked in, you can hear certain voices going off on like what you need to correct and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that comes into a huge role, like when you're playing football and you're running with the ball and your pads are clinging, your helmet's moving around, and then all of a sudden you can hear your one teammate being like, "Oh, crap, back on your right," or something like that. So then you can just juke without even thinking about it. And, soccer, same thing. Like basketball, that's why a ton of those like no-look passes happen.
Yeah.
It's all like communication. You got to be able to hear it and know your surroundings and hear where all the defenders are and like that. So, yeah.
I agree with that. Get the headphones out of your ears.
Yeah. But as far as like interns and stuff go, I think a lot of it just has to be, they just have to be like more vocal or just open. Like even if it's wrong, right? Just own it, say it, and then like we'll just make the correction later.
Yeah.
So yeah, the confidence aspect of it. You got to be confident when you're a strength coach. And I think
you do.
Yeah.
Some of the kids can pick you apart, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And my favorite though is when we are like making fun of the kids and like stuff like that, like the ones that have like finally like built up enough confidence where they'll start like chirping back, like, man, that just fills my heart with just so much joy. Because it's like a confidence factor in that point, I think, because there's a difference between confidence and cockiness, so it's like you can ride that line. But yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Trying to think. Have you guys ever had a coach speed coach or a PT that like really like just turned you off? Like either bad cues, didn't really like either articulate things well, like when you're like you didn't understand what they were asking of you.
I didn't really have it growing up, but I mean, a lot of it was just like your typical small town.
Mm-hmm.
Like actual school coaches were more like the typical small town political. Yeah. This is your dad type thing, so you get a lot of playing type stuff. But like, go to seminars, like listen to people talk now. Like sometimes they almost keep it too professional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes like certain wording or things like that.
Yeah,
like we all know what you're talking about, man. You
can use layman's terms.
Yeah,
please,
because there are some people here that might not be
up to speed.
Yeah,
with that lingo.
Yeah.
I mean, I never had like a speed coach or like a strength coach or like a private facility like in high school. Like I was pretty blessed with a coach as far as like our strength and conditioning coach like at the high school, where he was able to break it down and like, you know, why we're doing this and so forth. And but as far as like when I ran track and stuff, it was kind of just like, oh, do it. I'm like, well, I've never done an A skip before. Couldn't tell you the first thing on how to do that. But it was wild though, like that 1 year of track, like how improved like I was after the end of the season, just because I was doing like actual running mechanics and like, you know, just like simple like plyometrics that added up just over that course of the season. But yeah, I think a lot of it's now it's like, I'm going to sound like such an old man, just like the kids just don't realize like how good they actually have it at this point.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And they'll probably look back on it, hopefully later down the line and realize it.
Yeah.
So
actually, so like what's kind of cool is when I was in high school, like I'm surprised you didn't have anything like down here being in Tip City. Mm-hmm. Like we used to drive. So my brother and I used to drive up to Fast in Lima when we were in high school. And it was probably one of the best things we ever did because, and I think that's why I was so excited when I first came up here to work in, up in Piqua, because then I got to meet you guys and I saw what you guys were about and I was like, oh, hell yes. Like, it's going to be sweet. But my brother and I, we were in high school, we used to go up to Fast in Lima and it was actually fantastic because just the coaching I got there was really awesome. But two people in particular, Gwen and Adam Quirk. So like Gwen was fantastic, Adam was fantastic. Like they would always like get on me. Maybe we're and Matt Hershey. Matt Hershey was a good dude too, or is a good dude. He's not dead. But no, like I just noticed a huge difference just from like actually having like a direction with my training as opposed to, and nothing against the high school football weightlifting that we did, but like it just seemed like it was not as up to snuff as it could have been. I mean, heck, we were using stuff from like Nebraska, like from back in like the 80s or something like that. And so like when I finally went there and I started training, I started noticing huge progressions in speed and strength and like just even like my agility, like huge changes on the field too, though. I just feel like if you can get into a good place and start your training young and you can start building that up, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? But not only that, like you're making like habits for life. Like if I don't train in a day, like something's off. Like something's definitely off. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about organized, like especially like what you guys do. It's just different level.
Well, it's not your typical high school coaches setting either, where it's like, oh, you got the dude in charge and then everybody follows. It's kind of like there's a combination of, hey, the kids respect us, but we can also have conversations and kids feel comfortable enough to come talk to us about stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. So. Yeah, like it still catches me off guard on the certain occasions of like how much the kids like view us. Because like we're not necessarily a parent, we're not necessarily like a sibling, we're not a friend. It's like a very like almost like a unicorn-esque where like we're a therapist, but like we're cool and they leave us alone after a while.
Just kind of that random Funkle in the back.
Yeah.
Party.
Funkle? Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, because then, you know, if they start crying, we just give them back to the parents. Like, I took that one too far. Catch you next time.
Oh, man. No.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think a lot of that's is like you got to be able to like walk the walk though. Like I think that's where a lot of people like if you got somebody that's smart as shit but can't like throw some weight on their back and squat it,
Yeah,
not gonna get that much into it. But you got a guy that's too serious, then that's just kind of a turn off. But
yeah,
you got a guy you can mess around with, but that can also do some shit. That's where you're gonna keep the respect. And then hopefully when I get to that point at my age where I'm still doing this, I just have enough street cred.
Yeah, right. And it's like expanding upon that was like, I don't think I've ever been so upset, I guess, just like at an overall coach when we were at that one like powerlifting meet and there was a girl there that so you wear like a single ply suit. It's essentially just like a very tight canvas.
Mm-hmm.
But like in terms of like those squat suits, tighter is not all necessarily better.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have a coach that's just like, oh, like this one's tighter and you can like barely get down. So like we'll just put more weight on you and it'll push you down. No, that's not how it works. Like that's going to be so counterintuitive because like they have to be strong enough to manipulate the suit. So it's a different type of strength that you have to have them in. And I think like having a coach that is like worn that stuff is like a big difference. And I think that speaks for itself because the first year that we went to state, we had a girl never put it on before in her life, coached her all the way through it. Form was fine. One state. The very next year, a boy had never been into it. He was curious about it. We found one that fit him. I think he squatted 75 pounds more than he's ever like had on his back. But it's one of those where it's like your coach is like directly backspotting you and telling you exactly how it's all going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like a coach that hasn't been in those positions or felt that kind of a pressure, like they're not going to know. Yeah. So like you have the girl that's just like sitting there bawling her eyes out because her legs are purple, her feet are numb, she can't stand up. And then like you have, I think it was like 3 of her teammates trying to pull this squat suit off of her. Like it's embarrassing.
Holy shit.
And you're doing that in front of the parents. I was very upset that day. I felt terrible for her because it's a whole different level of like claustrophobia, I guess, if you will.
No, thank you.
Yeah, that was a random rant. Got that one in for the day.
How much did the vibe change whenever at Westside when Louis kind of couldn't get in the rack as much?
I wasn't around for that part. So I was in more so in like the later years. And to me, at least, I always looked at him like, because you could tell when he was frustrated in us without like telling us that he was frustrated, because he would go do like a set of like wheelbarrow shrugs, or he would do like standing ab crunches, but he would do sets for like 5 or 10 minutes without dropping the weight. Like the dude would just like go into a whole different place. And it was just like, he was, in a way, he was setting the example of like where your head needs to be while within those walls. And I think that's what like my rant about the headphones and stuff was like going to. It's it's almost just like develop like an alter ego. Just for an hour. You can be whoever the hell you want. Like if you're like a preppy white kid that comes from $1 million home, like be a gangster for an hour. Be dirt poor, and like try to make it out the mud or whatever you want to say. It's just like anything. So I think that played a role, but there was always a respect level for him too. Like when it came to stuff like that, like visitors and stuff, like they never like, but he was never one to like care about getting his like ass kicked or ass kissed. Like he very much wanted you to like kind of chirp at him and like stuff like that. Like he wanted to be like a training partner. He didn't want to be viewed as a coach.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, very thankful to be there and have met him and hung out with him a lot.
That's fucking sick.
All right. Well, it kind of got sad, so let's end it. Rest in peace, dude. You old fuck.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. We will see you guys in the next episode.